Welcome to the future of factory automation. This program is a broadcast of a Japanese podcast that has been translated into English using Notebook LM. Today, we're diving into a really interesting discussion looking at the Soft PLC, CODESYS, and its journey in the Japanese market. We're drawing from a translated audio source that has some pretty sharp observations. Our goal here is for you to really get the nuances, understand the challenges and maybe the opportunities when you try to bring something potentially disruptive into a market with very established giants.
Yeah, let's jump right in because the source, it pretty much immediately points out the core problem for CODESYS in Japan. It's about going up against the hardware PLC, big names, Mitsubishi, OMRON, Kientz. They're deeply entrenched. The original discussion used the phrase "shurhupdame," which translates to something like considerably difficult or tough going.
Considerably difficult. That sounds about right.
It really does. And you have to think about the existing relationships, maybe the risk aversion you sometimes see in Japanese manufacturing. It's not just about tech specs.
No, exactly. It's like trying to get someone to switch tools they've trusted for decades, even if the new tool has cool features.
Right. But, okay, despite that huge challenge, the discussion does highlight where CODESYS has its strengths.
Which is?
Well, fundamentally, it's a software PLC, and its compatibility with Windows. That's presented as a key differentiator.
Ah, okay. So the idea is maybe leveraging that Windows connection.
Precisely. The suggestion came up, what if you offered CODESYS bundled with Windows applications? Create like frameworks or packages that really exploit that synergy.
Interesting. Sort of integrating it more tightly, maybe with HMI or data systems on the same platform.
Exactly. Think about streamlined data flow, maybe less hardware overall in certain situations. That could be a real plus, especially for applications leaning more towards, IT integration.
Yeah, I can see that. But then the conversation shifted, didn't it, to something really practical, pricing and licensing.
It did. And apparently that's a bit of a sticking point in Japan. There seem to be some hurdles.
Hurdles like what?
A key one mentioned was the separation of the CODESYS software license from the hardware it runs on by the manufacturers using it.
Okay, so you buy the hardware from company X, but the CODESYS license is separate.
Kind of. And this separation apparently makes the individual licenses feel more expensive. The figure mentioned was around $60, maybe for standard use plus visualization.
$60. Doesn't sound enormous on its own, but I guess context is everything.
Exactly. In a market focused on cost efficiency, where maybe the big players bundle things differently, that extra perceived cost, even if small, can make people pause.
And it's not just theory, right? The source mentioned actual cases.
Yeah, there was an anecdote about end users actually rethinking buying CODESYS licenses because of this cost and looking at competitors instead. So it's having a real-world impact, apparently.
Wow, okay. That really brings it home.
And it leads to this bigger question, which the discussion also touched on.
Yeah.
Is CODESYS, with its specific strengths, really aiming at the right target market in Japan?
Meaning, does being a software PLC on Windows really appeal to the core users of Mitsubishi, OMRON, Kientz, the ones doing, what was the phrase?
The very center, the heart of production equipment.
Right. Is that CODESYS' natural home?
It's a fair question. Maybe its unique value is better suited elsewhere. The discussion kind of hints that competing directly in that central production zone, well, it requires a massive investment.
An investment in marketing, support, building trust, things that take time and serious resources.
Which CODESYS, as just the software provider in this context, might struggle to match against the established players directly.
So, if not the absolute center, where is it finding traction? The discussion mentioned some areas, didn't it?
It did. Niche areas, perhaps, but interesting ones, like academia and research. Apparently, it integrates well with ROS, the robot operating system.
ROS, how does that work?
Through things like RSBridge and shared memory, it allows robotic systems and the PLC to talk easily, which is great for, advanced research, flexible automation setups.
Okay, that makes sense. Anywhere else?
Also mentioned were panel computers, Windows-based environments where maybe you want to avoid adding a separate hardware PLC if you don't absolutely need one.
Right, using the PC's own resources.
Exactly. These applications played directly to its strengths, software nature, Windows compatibility, where a traditional box PLC might just add complexity or cost.
Yeah, there's always a but, isn't there? The discussion brought up something critical. The who will champion it problem.
Yeah, this was a big point. The apparent lack of a central driving force, an influential figure or organization really pushing CODESYS adoption in Japan.
Unlike the big PLC guys who have, Mitsubishi Japan, OMRON Japan.
Precisely. There's no CODESYS Japan entity in the same way. You have companies using CODESYS in their products, sure.
But they're promoting their product, not necessarily CODESYS itself as the platform.
Exactly. So who's making the broad case for CODESYS? Who's clearly explaining its benefits and use cases as a core software PLC solution across the board? That voice seems to be missing, according to the source.
And that lack of a champion, you figure, makes it harder to convince companies to switch.
It certainly contributes. Think about the inertia. Companies have invested heavily in, say, Mitsubishi systems.
Yeah.
Engineers are trained, they have code libraries.
We know it works. They have the support network.
Right, and the point was made, even switching between hardware PLCs like Mitsubishi to OMRON, that's already a big undertaking.
So switching to a fundamentally different software-based approach like CODESYS, that's an even bigger hurdle.
Understandably so, which leads us into that whole ongoing debate about PLCs versus IPCs, industrial PCs, and software control.
Where does CODESYS fit in that? The discussion had a take on this too, right?
Yeah, a nuanced one. It suggested CODESYS might not be a straightforward replacement for every traditional PLC job.
Okay, why not?
Well, one point raised was the lack of maybe clear, standardized ways to really use advanced software concepts like object-oriented programming effectively within CODESYS in a typical factory setting.
So the potential is there in the software, but the practical application, the established methods, aren't quite solidified industry-wide yet.
Something like that. And while software portability is often cited as an advantage, the lines are blurring. You see IPCs becoming more PLC-like with real-time capabilities. It complicates the simple software versus hardware picture.
So strategically speaking, the takeaway seems to be maybe don't pick a direct fight with the giants on their home turf.
That seems to be the strong suggestion. Find the areas where CODESYS offers a distinct, clear advantage and really build the brand identity around those strengths.
Because right now, if you ask, where is CODESYS widely used successfully in Japan, there isn't an immediate obvious answer.
Apparently not a clear, universally known one. And that indicates a need for better brand building, more showcasing of diverse, successful use cases.
Unlike, say, Beckhoff or B&R, who are very vocal about their IPC and software strengths.
Exactly. They have a clearer message about what their integrated hardware and software solution does best. CODESYS, being primarily software adopted by various hardware vendors, seems to lack that single, focused voice in Japan.
So what's a potential path forward then? Did the discussion offer any strategic thoughts?
There was an interesting idea floated. Maybe focus on the lower end of the control spectrum initially.
Lower end, like smaller machines, simpler tasks.
Potentially even microcontroller applications. The thinking is, CODESYS might offer significant cost-effectiveness and flexibility there, where the big PLC solutions might be overkill.
Start small, build a track record, demonstrate value.
Right. Use success in those areas as a stepping stone, build credibility, and then maybe move towards broader adoption in more complex systems later. A kind of ground-up approach.
A gradual build rather than a direct assault. Makes sense. Anything else significant?
Just one final point near the end. A bit of pushback against the idea that IPC systems, like TwinSAC, for example, have completely overtaken traditional PLCs everywhere.
Oh, so the source disagreed with that narrative.
Yeah, the perspective shared was basically saying, hold on, let's not declare the PLC dead just yet. There isn't really conclusive proof that IPCs are always the better solution for every industrial task right now.
So it's still horses for courses.
Mm-hmm.
PLCs have their place, IPCs have theirs, and the best choice depends on the specific application.
That seems to be the more balanced view presented. Both have pros and cons, and the landscape is still evolving.
Posting 200 daily episodes. Please follow and comment. So given all those challenges we've just unpacked, it leaves you wondering, what specific innovations or perhaps market shifts could genuinely accelerate the adoption of software PLCs, like CODESYS, in a really established industrial market like Japan's?